Welcome to the Computer Repair Podcast, episode number 332, Being Away. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss the ins and outs of running your computer repair business. Let me introduce the co-host we have with us this week. We have Adam Carpenter from IT Professionals of Iowa. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good to have you on the show. It's been a while. Been busy this summer, apparently.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and share a quick tip or story that the audience could learn from. And I'll have you go first since you're my only co-host this week.
All right. Um, don't be afraid of your competition. That's my tip. For multiple reasons. One, for the topic we're going to talk about today, they can benefit you. And two, if you're worried about your competition based on their performance, you're not doing your job.
That's well said. One of the things when you think about competition, and I've always said this from the beginning, I don't really believe that there's any competition. I believe everybody has their strong suits, everybody has their weak suits, everybody has their in-betweens. There's a lot of times where if you really look at your customer base and you build your customer base from a standpoint of the personal relationship, you really don't have to worry about a whole lot of that other stuff, because if it's just going to come down to price, you really don't want those customers anyways. If it's just going to come down to, I want you to bend over backwards and I want to rule everything that you do and second guess you and all that, it's the same thing. The reality is we want to build a trusting relationship with our customer base so that they can come to us and ask us questions. We can give them answers without trying to think that we're just trying to pull money out of their pocket all the time. Things cost money, and because they cost money in time and effort and all that kind of stuff, it's just the way it is. It's no different than that business owner doing whatever they do for their business. They don't want to work for free. So when you think about that from a standpoint of you have to have that relationship where their business is treated as a real business, just like your business is treated as a real business. Don't think one is lesser than the other, because you're serving something that they need and they're out there serving something that somebody else needs. That's the way it works.
So the customers I want, and this is from a business support standpoint, is I want customers that understand downtime has a cost to it, and my cost is typically less than that downtime.
Absolutely. There is and people, I think a lot of times is we try to jump in and do this. I'm going to put on my red cape, throw the S on my chest, and I'm going to jump in and we're going to go in there and we're going to solve all their problems, and we're going to be their best friend, and we're going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Boy, I love my old sayings. But the reality is we've got to go in and cultivate a relationship. You understand things cost money. I understand things cost money. Here's how we're going to work together to benefit both of our businesses, not just one or the other. It's a balancing act. All right. Enough with that. All right. So what I want to do is I'm going to take a quick tip. Something is I ran across over the last probably week. Every once in a while, when I've been doing some scans on my computer, and this is the only thing I can correlate it with, I've had a file folder that says removable storage devices folder come up on my desktop with nothing in it. Kind of weird. So I went and I looked and tried to figure out, okay, why does this keep popping up? Usually when I restart my computer, it will go away and it's not a big deal. But I'm like, where is this coming from? Because obviously I don't want anything bad to be going on in my computer or any problems or anything that I run into. So it's a real simple solution. It's a glitch in Windows 10. Oh, really? There's a Microsoft product that has a problem. Go figure. Anyways, the glitch, all you have to do is right click on your desktop, hit refresh screen, or I think it just says refresh now. Hit refresh and it will refresh the desktop. The folder goes away. No harm, no foul. Hopefully they'll fix that down the road. I don't know what the glitch is from or where it points to, but like I said, every time I've looked in there, it's an empty folder. Have you ran into that at all?
I've not, and I was just thinking I hardly ever see my desktop between browser windows, Outlook, Teams.
See, a lot of people probably would not notice because and you would know this too, is most of your customers out there, they live on their desktop. Their desktop is usually cluttered with all kinds of file folders and shortcuts and all kinds of things that they can get to. Even though it's such a discombobulated mess, to them, it's the way that they actually do their work.
Yeah, whenever I refresh a computer or set up a new one or whatever it is, I always pin icons from the desktop on the taskbar, and I leave their desktop clean. And they're like, "Where's all my stuff?" And I'm like, "It's right here, organized, nice and neat." And usually they stick with it. Some of them don't, but you're never going to win them all.
No, and a lot of people will, and I know there's people out there that will literally take when they refresh a computer, they'll take a picture, like a picture of from their phone of the desktop and what it looks like so that they can put everything back the same. To me, I'm going, it's already a cluttered mess. I am not going to empower you to have a cluttered mess on your desktop. That would just be rude of me. So
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
going to
not
be
doing that.
so I'm going to be even ruder and you're going to do it my way.
Well, and you also have the other side of the coin is if it's not there, they don't miss it because they didn't know it was there or why it was there anyway half the time.
Yes, I agree. There's a lot of stuff that collects on there. So when they do come to find the stuff that they use, a lot of times they've added it to their desktop at some point, anyways. If they really want it on their desktop, they're either going to ask you or they're going to put it on there themselves, and that's fine. All right. Anyways, desktop clutter. Gotta love it. Maybe we'll do a show on that. All right, so let's talk about, man, we are short to TechCon Unplugged. I can't believe it. Time has flown. We've been working on this for over a year, and it just boggles my mind that we are within a probably less than 2 weeks. Actually, way less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, getting down there.
So about 13 days, I think. So,
Yeah.
anyways, TechCon Unplugged, bringing the IT community together. That's what we're all about. We want to bring people together, not only us as business owners, but we also want to bring together vendors who are helpful in our businesses. And we want to help them grow. They want to help us grow. And we want that symbiotic relationship. That is why we are doing this particular conference. If you have never been to a conference or if you've been to plenty of conferences, I encourage you to get your ticket to this conference. It will be well worth your time. You will make a lot of relationships and you will have just a ton of fun because we plan on having a lot of fun. That's what, if you're just going to come to a conference and just listen to people drone on and not have fun, that's fine. It's just not my cup of tea. So, wow, there's another old saying. Okay. So, anyways, join like minded business owners for a weekend packed with resources to help your IT business thrive, hear from experts, and get one on one time with peers facing the same challenges you are on a regular basis. Walk away with concrete action items to take to your business to the next level. Everybody's looking to how do I grow my business? How do I get more customers? How do I do this? How do I do that? How do I streamline? How do I automate? All these things that questions are asked, you're going to be able to have deep dive conversations with people, get great ideas, and walk away with a bunch of information that you're going to be able to put in your business day one when you get home, if you choose to. It is September 20th through the 22nd, 2019. Man, it is short. It is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You can get there pretty easily. Grand Rapids has a nice little airport. And guess what? It's right at the Holiday Inn by the airport. You can get shuttled right on over. Got all that stuff taken care of for you. TechConUnplugged.com. Go there. Tickets are $199. That includes all your food for Friday night. We're having a dinner. Saturday, we're going to have breakfast and lunch. And Sunday, we're going to have breakfast and lunch. And here's the thing. So there's a lot of different ways to do conferences when it comes to food. And I'm just going to tell you, as an organizer of this particular conference, hotel food is extremely, extremely expensive. But we've had a lot of sponsors that have stepped up and helped us and given us money to put this thing together. And so we were able to move some of these things up and actually have full-fledged lunches, full-fledged breakfast, full-fledged dinner on Friday night, and full-fledged dinner at Dave and Buster's on Saturday night. It doesn't get any better than that. You also get with that, you'll get a $20 card, one of the power cards for Dave and Buster's, and you can play games and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just sit in a room where we're gonna have uh, right now. I think the room seats like 80 people, and you'll be able to sit in there and talk and just have a blast and all that kind of good stuff. So, anyways, September 20th through the 22nd. This is probably going to be the last advertisement before the show. We've only got one more show before the actual conference. So get your tickets today, techconunplugged.com. Make your arrangements to get here, whether you fly, drive, carrier pigeon, however you choose to do it. Get here, be there, or be square. And if you're not, we're definitely going to miss you. So, anyways. All right. Today, Adam brought this beautiful, wonderful topic to us. And since we're talking about the conference, we were talking about things of what do you do when you plan to be away from your business? There's a lot of us that are solopreneurs. There's a lot of us that basically to walk away from our business, even on the weekends when we might do a lot of project work or whatever, is hard. And there are some things you can do to set yourself up. And I encourage you, if you cannot, and I'm going to say this before I kick it off to Adam, but if you cannot step away from your business, I'm just going to be point blank blunt with you. This is a Steve Jobs moment. You are doing it wrong, period. Because there are many different ways to skin a cat. And again, not that I'm into skinning cats. I'm just saying there's a lot of ways to do business. There's a lot of ways to make your life better. There's a lot of ways to build margin in your life. And these are things that should be important to you because I'm going to tell you, I am on the precipice of being half a century old beginning of next year. So I've learned a lot of things that what you can do and how you can abuse yourself in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. Once you get closer to that midway point, trust me, it becomes a lot less. And not to scare anybody out there. There are things you can do to reverse that, but a lot of times what ends up happening is us ourselves, we overcommit, we overdo, we don't set enough time with our family, with our kids, loved ones, all that kind of stuff. And so because we don't do that, we're just constantly chasing the buck. We're constantly going out there getting it. And as John says, we're killing it, bringing it home, cooking it, and going to bed and getting up the next day and doing the same thing. So while there is seasons of doing that type of stuff, you have to build margin in your life or you're not going to be able to do it for the long haul. This I will guarantee you because I can point to many, many people that, the burnout and these things, and we've talked about them on past shows. These things are real and they happen to you. I don't care how strong your character is. They will affect the strongest character out there. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it other than plan to make sure that you have your time and you have your ability to recharge. All right, with that, Adam, so what are some of the things and where do we start if we're going to walk away from our business, whether it be during the week or in this particular case, we're going to be going away for a weekend. And for a lot of us, that means Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So really what that means is really Thursday, not going to get a whole lot done because you're prepping ready to go. Friday is a dead day, Saturday, Sunday, obviously. And then Monday, by the time you get back, you're probably not going to be doing a whole lot. So we're talking about up, 4 to 5 days away from your business. So
Yeah.
what do we
So
do?
so for me, I'm driving. So I have a 6.5 hour drive. So I'm leaving Friday morning. Friday's gone. I plan on staying and leaving Monday. Like you said, driving back, nothing's gonna get done. So for me, we're a two-person company. I do all the tech work, and then I also have an admin. So the admin, she'll still be available. She'll be making phone calls or taking phone calls and making appointments for anything that's not emergency. So pretty much everything as much as possible. Unless we have a company that's down completely for whatever reason. If that's the case, we'll try to do whatever vendor management we can, make contacts, and she can handle most of that. Been around for a while now. Otherwise, if need be, I will have my laptop with me. I can stop, whether I'm on my way or if I'm at the conference or whatever. But what I found out from the last few conferences I've been to is typically there's not an emergency that's a problem. So if you're a single person, taking those phone calls on the road and whatnot can be a pain. Um, and this brings up competition as well. So if you don't have that admin person or somebody in the office that can take those phone calls or an answering service or what have you, reach out to local other businesses. I don't want to say competition, but other businesses in the area that do similar work. Um, you should have some sort of non-compete agreement between the two of you anyway if you're concerned about that. But even if you're not, just so everybody's very clear, this is what we're going to do, this is what you're going to do. All of your billing, your rates or whatever is all worked out between the two of you, and then let them know that, look, I'm going to be out these days. If I have something, can I send it to you? And you can set that up depending on your phone system. You could have it forwarded, you could have emails forwarded, or you could just handle them and send them over, which is something I would prefer to do, is kind of triage things because it may not need to go over there, and I don't want to pay that other company to do something that can wait until Tuesday. Um, so, but talking to other companies local that are already familiar with the area, helps as well. So that's always an option. But if as long as you're not bringing on new customers the day before you leave, it really shouldn't be an issue, because most things you should know the status of it. So for us, and this can go either way. We don't tell customers that, hey, we're going to be gone for 4 days, or we're going to be gone for 2 days of the week, Friday and then Monday, because we find what that does is causes panic or causes a reason to call for whatever reason. Don't tell them, let the day go on as normal. We will have somebody to answer the phones, so it will be like we're here, and we'll just schedule it as we need. Now, some people will tell their customers, and it may depend on the area and your clients and whatnot, and say, hey, we're going to be out for this day for continuing education or whatever you want to call it, and they're fine with that as well. You just have to figure out what works for your business.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I kind of am on the side of what they don't know won't hurt them and won't cause them to have this panic about you not being close by, because I think a lot of times we really are important to our customers, because when things go down, we're the first call, right?
Mhm.
Hey, hey, Comcast is going wonky. It has nothing to do with us, whatever, but they're going to call us first and go, hey, I need you to check this out most of the time. Now, unless you set that up prior where you tell the customer, hey, if it's this issue, here's who you call. If it's this issue, then you can call me, and so on and so forth. Again, kind of creating that difference of what's an emergency, what's not an emergency. And then two, if you have where you triage everything by, let's say you have people put in tickets, for what you were saying about a receptionist, you don't really need a receptionist if you have a ticketing system that people can put in a ticket. It's going to email you with the information, and then you can choose at that point whether to contact them and take it further, or you don't, and you kind of let it ride till Monday. And you've got to be able to know what are probably the best things for this particular customer. What's going to serve them best in this situation? Are they going to be totally again, you have to look at it from both sides. If you're going to look at it from the customer side, and if they're called on the weekend, I can tell you right now, most businesses that I know that are out there, they're not answering calls on the weekend. They're out there golfing, sailboating, whatever it is they're doing on the weekend with friends and family, loved ones, and all that. So they're out doing that. And for somebody, whether it be an office worker that works at that office or the CEO calling you at home on the weekend, eh, it's, kind of, in my opinion, unless everything just blew up, there's really not an emergency.
Well, and besides that, I know for us, I would say 90% of our work is done remotely. Unless it's an outright hardware failure, it doesn't matter if I'm here, Grand Rapids, Chicago, New York, wherever. If I have an internet connection, I can do the same work. Granted, I'm using my laptop without my three screens, so it's less convenient, but it makes no difference on getting the work done.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's nice to, in this. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you just brought up a great point of what types of things should you have when you're going away to a conference or you're going away for continuing education. And obviously, a lot, and I've tried to do these things. Listen, just because you can do things on a phone does not mean you should. And I'm just going to say, people that think that they can do things on the phone, you are part of the problem. So with that being said, I just alienated like
Just half the people.
yeah, 50% of the audience just said, "Up yours, Jeff." Um, but if you have a laptop, and what I would recommend is you can get an off lease, refurbished, business grade laptop that you can drop, knock somebody over the head, and it's going to work for you. It might not be the best, it's never going to be, and people will argue this all the time. It will never be a desktop computer. I can guarantee you that. Will it be normal to you? Absolutely, because so many people live on their laptops anyways. It is normal. But for me, I can feel the difference hands down. So, anyways, side note. But if you have a laptop with you, and I've heard other people do things on tablets, again, tablets are only good to a certain point. Can you do these things on there? Can you remote into a computer? Yes, you can. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've got a nice little Dell Latitude, and I can't remember what series. I think it's an 11-inch, and it is basically a tablet. And I'm going to tell you that the Windows tablet experience on this particular device, it's actually my wife's, is horrible. Horrible. It just, it is not intuitive. It is not easy to use. But I'll tell you what, you put the little snap-on keyboard and it doesn't make it that much bigger. And I'll tell you, it's a full-blown 11-inch laptop that you can do anything you want with your Windows 10 operating system on there easily. Just not in tablet mode. So I'm going to say you probably need something with a keyboard. Is going to make your life a lot easier. And, at first, there's probably a lot of people out there who are like me. When I first started using a laptop, man, I had to have a mouse. Now I don't care anymore. It's like I can do just as quick on the touchpad, or if you get a lot of the business grade laptops still come with the little, I don't know what they call those little squiggly sticks in the middle of the keyboard there. There's a name for it and I can't think of it right now, but you know what I'm talking about. Little rubberized point that you can use as a moving your mouse around.
Yeah, those irritate me because they're so finicky. I don't know.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I use the touchpad. Because when I'm mobile, it's always the worst. Like on site, it's the worst conditions. I'm holding a laptop. I got nowhere to put a mouse. Or you get a corner of a shelf that you move enough stuff that you can put it there. So I never was a mouse person with a laptop unless I had the full docking station, keyboard, everything set up.
Sure.
But if I'm just using my laptop, I use the touchpad, and I want as basic and simple as possible. So I just have a
Absolutely.
standard 14-inch Dell Latitude, does everything I need.
That's what I've got. Yep. And it works perfectly fine. And nowadays, again, with these higher end laptops that are going to be your business grade, but you can get for a quarter of the price off lease, 2, 3, 4 years old, a lot of times. And now normally you hear us talk about recommendation of, replacing laptops. And we're like, hey, every third year, you probably should be looking at that. Well, and the reality is a lot of these laptops were so high end when they were bought that they will last the test of time. You can get 5, I'm going to say maybe even up to 7 years. Might be pushing it a little bit, but they are pretty solid unless they have a hardware failure, which could happen. But if you get 5 years out of one of those laptops, you're doing real well. And then you'll probably notice a difference if you go to get a new laptop with a newer processor, more RAM, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and especially if it's a secondary system, it's not your main system. You put 8 to 16 gigs of RAM in it, put an SSD in it, get a somewhat um, current Core i5 processor, and you're going to be just fine for most things. I wouldn't use it for CAD or video editing or things like that if you didn't have to, but for remote desktop type stuff or web browser based stuff, it's going to be perfectly fine.
I was going to say, people do video editing on their MacBooks all the time, and that's the crappiest hardware out there that you could ever find. You're going to pay a premium for crappy hardware. The software, not so bad. The hardware, crap for the price
It
you
looks
pay for
pretty.
it. Yes, they are pretty. Yeah. I actually had to. This was years ago, and I had to get on one of my pastors' when he actually took his plastic MacBook back in the day. I think it was a little 13-inch, and he was crunching video on it for 24 hours and it melted the bottom. I was like,
Wow.
yeah, you don't understand. You can't do that. That's not what these were designed for. That's why we have a big, big can in there called a Mac that has terabytes and terabytes of, storage and can crunch this video. Doing it on your laptop, especially a plastic laptop,
Yeah.
not so smart.
I'm surprised it didn't have some sort of thermal shutdown.
So was I. But I don't really know. I didn't know that much about those particular laptops back in the day, other than you could get them for like $800, I think. On sale at a micro center during certain parts of the year or whatever. I think they were normally about $1,000, and it was probably a good deal if you wanted it into the Mac world, the Mac universe. Which again, everybody's going to use what they want to use, but
Yep.
um, so anyway, so going back, so one of the things too is if I'm going to say this because I have to do this all the time. Whenever I'm going away, one of the things I have to make sure is I don't have my laptop out all the time because, as Adam has said, is my secondary system. I live on my desktop. When I'm at home, I'm on my desktop. So I'd rather come up to my office, be on my desktop than be on my laptop any day of the week. That's just me. So with that being said, there's a lot of times where my laptop is sitting on my shelf and it hasn't been charged up and it hasn't been updated. And if you're anywhere around a big, humongous Windows update, you're going to want to make sure that stuff is done. And not only that, if you're using a business class, a Dell Latitude, HP ProBook, whatever, a lot of times they will actually have firmware updates and things that will fix the problem. So you want to make sure that you get all that stuff done. And usually you can do it right through their software. It's pretty easily up until I got I got kind of screwed on the last big update because I actually had to download it from the website and install the firmware because the software wouldn't let me do it on 1903. I don't know why. Anyways,
Yeah, you would think that I would pull my laptop out once a week, but seems like it's a little less frequently than that, and it's always when I'm on site. And so then Outlook's got to update with, the past week or two, and then you got antivirus has to scan because it hasn't done that for a while, and it's just like, yeah.
the other thing too is tools. So a lot of times now I use my OneDrive for a lot of my tools and everything that I actually share between my bench computer, my primary computer, and my laptop. So what I figured out a long time ago, and some of you old curmudgeons will understand this, but the days where we used to have a keychain of USB sticks with where we had to update each and every one of them with all the software and tools we had on there. And then if you were like me and you were like one of those tinfoil hat guys, yours had a physical locking switch on it. So you'd plug it in, you'd forget that you forgot to unlock it, then you have to pull it back out, then you have to unlock it, then you have to put it back in the computer, and then you have to update the software on there. Or I got real smart. I used to update all the software on my bench computer, and then I just take these flash drives and put them over there and move all the data. That's all fine and dandy for most of your tools, except when you're using things like WSUS and you have 32 gigs of data you need to move onto a flash drive, which is slow as molasses. Even 64 gig, 128 gig, flash drives. So a lot of times I would actually use a spinning drive way back when because it was faster than a USB stick any day of the week, even plugged in USB. So this transferring of data and moving all this stuff just became this huge ordeal. So what I figured out was a lot of this stuff I can keep in my OneDrive. And if you have an Office 365 account, you're going to get a terabyte of space anyways. You just put that stuff up there. It sits there. It sits. And then what I'll do is on my main systems, my laptop, my bench computer, and then my main computer, is I will have it saved to, it will be on every one of those computers. So I don't have to download it every time. But
So
you have to sync it up. So in other words, you got to turn your laptop on so it can sync those files with any updates you've made previously on your main system or bench computer.
So for me, I have a tools drive on our network that I use for anything Office, and I'm still using a single 128 gig USB 3 flash drive for most of my stuff. And the main thing I use is UVK, so I just update it when I run it. So that's not a big deal. Um, Now, have you had any issues with OneDrive and file types, or do you have to compress anything as far as EXEs? I've never tried OneDrive for tools, because like sometimes when you put your flash drive or whatever in a machine, whatever AV's on there will quarantine your tools because they're malicious or could be or what have you. Do you get flagged or anything, or any issues with EXEs on OneDrive or anything like that?
I have been flagged, and then what I'll do is I usually go by and I'll whitelist them, and
Okay.
then once they're whitelisted, I generally don't have a problem unless there is a humongous update, which generally for tools there usually isn't.
Okay.
And it seems like it's gotten better because I've not gotten as many flags nowadays, even when I've gone and I bought some of the other tools and stuff that were out there or did some major updates to them. I really haven't had an issue.
So I moved our what I call our operations folder from our network, which is really documents, marketing, legal, all that stuff, to SharePoint. But I was concerned about moving tools and software. But I may have to try that because if that's the case, I can get rid of another virtual machine that I wouldn't need for that reason. So
And
I'll have to try that.
yeah, so I know this is kind of a side tangent off what we're talking about, but with that being said, this is kind of the way the show goes. So one of the things that I make sure that I have all these backups, right? So
Hmm.
actually have Carbonite is backing up my OneDrive folder. I have Carbonite backing up my main computer. I have a Synology NAS sitting behind me that backs up my main computer, all the files and things on there. Um, my drives are separated as far as I have an operating system drive that really doesn't have anything but the operating system updates in any of the main programs and stuff that I use. I kind of leave that alone. Anytime, and this is not going to count for everybody, but if you have games or things out there, that's on a secondary drive. And then I have a third SSD for basically just files.
Hmm.
And so I keep a lot of my big document files, my ISOs, all that kind of stuff is totally on a separate drive, but everything is backed up via Carbonite. So I've got it in probably most of it is in three, some is even in four places. So feel pretty confident if anything were to happen, I'm going to be able to get most of it back most of the time.
Right.
Anyways, going off on another tangent. So when we're talking about, obviously, we want to set everything up, make sure that we've got a working laptop, that we don't have to go over the hotel Wi-Fi and make sure that we get all these updates down at 8 gigabytes at a time.
Yeah.
Now, where do we go from there? What other things we got to do?
Um, make sure you have some sort of plan in place as far as, like we've talked about. Well, so make sure that your customers know how to contact you. If you let them contact you in any form, for one, that's hard to track. That's hard to keep track of. So, you can have, you could also have an IVR depending on your phone system. Hey, we're closed this day or whatever. If you need emergency service, press 2 or whatever. Or email, ticketing, phone call, one of those three. Those are the three we use. I know some people do text messaging, not something we're going to delve into, but then you can triage those. If you don't, maybe you don't want to work with a competitor for whatever reason, maybe have a contractor that you've worked with. Obviously, now is not the time to start this, this close to this coming conference, but after, maybe work with a contractor on several jobs, get the same person, somebody you can be familiar with. So if for whatever reason you need boots on the ground, because we'll have those customers where, hey, I just need you to reboot the router. Well, I don't want to touch anything. I don't, I'd rather have you just come in. So in those situations, you could have them go on site. And even if you have to be on the phone from whatever state you may be in, at least there's somebody there, somebody is somewhat familiar with your processes, and you can walk them through that. But regardless, just have some sort of plan in place.
That's good. Yeah. Plan things out. And I think a lot of times too, and this will go back to a conversations we've had in the past also about having maybe, I don't know, checklists of things that you need to do before you leave for a conference. Make sure that X, Y, and Z are all done so that you're not leaving the house going, did I leave the coffee pot on? Or whatever it might mean for your business. And there's all these little things that you don't want when you're getting away from your business, whether it's to learn, whether it's to relax, whether it's to whatever. You want to be able to make sure that you've got a clear mind ready to go, ready to receive the information. You don't want to be tied up into what was going on while you're back at your home base. You want to make sure you alleviate all that, because that's part of the point of getting away for this particular type of conference or vacation or whatever you're doing.
Well, and we've all had projects that, oh, this should be simple, and it blows up, and it's not, you know. So if you can avoid it, that's something to keep in mind too. Hey, I got a conference coming up in 2 weeks. Let's not do this server replacement until the week after. You know, whatever
That's a
you
good
can do to
that's a
to
good point, because a lot of times you can actually make that, you can set the priority to that, because a lot of times if you're setting up project work way ahead of time, if it's gotten to the emergency mode, then you're not cultivating your customers well enough to get them to the mode where it's like, hey, we need to start talking about this 6 months before we actually need to get it done. And then we've got some leeway no matter what we've got coming up, whether it be summertime and all that kind of stuff. So that makes sense. All right. So so we've got all our stuff together. We've got ourselves ready to go. Obviously we've maybe printed off our boarding passes, or however we do that nowadays. Maybe we do it on the phone. I don't know. Um, Actually I do. I've done it both ways. I'm usually, again, I'm the old guy. I usually print one out and have it just in case, even though I will tap my phone most of the time because it just works. Until it doesn't, then I
I
just don't want to
just
be that guy.
I just drive, so I don't deal with that.
There you go. There you go. Driving makes it so much easier. So yeah, obviously now obviously you're going to have so let's talk about this. You're in between going from your home base to this conference. You're driving, however you're getting there. And in this particular case, do you carry a Wi-Fi card or something that you can use? Use your phone if you need to look. Can you hook it up to your computer so that you can get in there and do that kind of work?
Yep. So for me, I have Verizon for my provider, and I just use my cell phone. I can tether to it if I need to. And I know this may be a little scary, but a lot of gas stations nowadays are offering free Wi-Fi as well if it comes down to it. Um, so you could always connect to that if needed. Be careful with what you're doing, but because who knows what's on that network. But in an emergency, if whatever reason your phone's not working, you don't have that option, or you don't have good cell reception or what have you, a lot of gas stations are now offering that. Or you may find a library or something. There's usually some sort of Wi-Fi connection available without going too far off the beaten path.
Yeah, and a lot of times you've got your restaurants too, right?
Yep.
McDonald's, Panera, pretty much every major restaurant that you could sit in is going to have some sort of Wi-Fi that you're going to be able to connect to. And in any time, I haven't seen it lately. A few times I've seen it where somebody will have an open network that doesn't have a password on it. And what I try to explain to the business owners is that, listen, it doesn't matter what the password is. This could be a McDonald's Wi-Fi and the password could be McDonald's. I don't care. But that is way better than just having this open fringe that anybody can get on and be a man in the middle and do all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be that pass through information, right? The other thing too is VPN. When I went away to Korea earlier this year, I set up a VPN on my laptop and also on my phone. You can do both. There's free VPN sources out there, and I think we've talked about them in the past. But one of the things I do is I actually VPN into my home network here. As everybody knows, I use the Snap AV gear, the Arachnid stuff, and basically I'm able to set up a VPN. So a lot of people will tell you VPNs may or may not be safe. Well, I agree. If you're going to VPN into just a random server somewhere by said company, whomever that is, you really don't know. I mean, that's just the bottom line truth. People can say it's the safest thing or whatever, but the reality is we really don't know. Do I feel safe that my network is as safe as I possibly can make it? Yes, I do. Do I feel that the VPN is probably a safe environment for me to VPN into? Absolutely, I do. So, with that being said, you've got to do a couple things before you leave. If you're going to set it up on your network, you've got the ability to do that. You want to make sure the software is downloaded. Again, you don't want to do this stuff on the fly or be like me, be over in a foreign country and go, why is this VPN not working? Why can't I get it to? It says it's on. It's running, but I keep getting this Korean IP address. Why is this happening? Until you figure out that you forgot to flip one little bit on your router that said, yeah, enable this. So
Another thing to keep in mind if you're traveling, so sometimes what I'll do is I just treat it like I'm at another appointment. Don't make it an emergency to pull over and reset a password. I'm busy right now. I will get to this as at my next convenience or my next available time. When you stop for gas, or if you're close when you get to where you're going, or whatever. The world's not going to end.
I agree. Yeah, especially password resets. That's just, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait on that one. So anyway, so now let's talk about once you get to the conference and you're or wherever you're going, what are some of the things that you might need to be aware of, or what are some of the things where you can basically you can concentrate on what you're doing, but maybe set up a pattern or set up a way that you can get emergency notifications. If said emergency notification comes in, you've got to duck out for a minute, go grab your laptop and fix a couple problems.
Well, I would say most of us have our cell phones, and most notifications, emails, whatever come into that. Um, so I typically leave mine on vibrate because I don't want it bothering me most of the time. But between sessions or at lunch or once or twice a day at a conference is probably enough. Maybe not constantly like most of us are used to doing. You just have to make the conscious decision, or put it on silent, or even shut it off during the day. And then, a couple times a day, check it, make sure that the world's still going around, and go about your day. But that's just it. If you're constantly tied to your phone or laptop or whatever, and still focused on business, you're not getting, the education or the quality time or the relaxation that you should be at these conferences, that should be getting you away from work.
Yeah, that's very well said. So definitely, I know, and I see it all the time, and I'm just as guilty as anybody else. When I pull my phone out, and I've shut most notifications off on my phone. I have my business email, and I have the computer repair podcast secret Facebook group on notification. And other than my phone and text messages, which I don't use, well, I use phone. I don't use. Actually, I don't. I separated my cell phone. I use Freedom Voice now, so that's actually separated. I separated all that. So I have literally two notifications that are even pertain anything to this business. And then outside of that, I've got my phone calls and text messages, which I use for my day to day between my family and work, etc. And that's it. I shut everything else off because even though I knew it wasn't important, when that thing would go off in my pocket, I'd want to pull it out, or I'd want to look at my smartwatch and go, "Oh, hey, let me
Yeah.
look at that." And it's such a bad habit. And here's the problem: if I get a notification on Facebook and I start looking, all of a sudden I'm like this. Everybody laughs at me because like the one finger swish, right? I'm just in 45 minutes later, I'm going, "What in the world was I just doing?"
Yeah.
So I'm weak, people. I get it. I'm weak. I'm one of the problems out there. And so yeah, mitigate that as much as you can. And you really need to segment yourself during the day to check that stuff in 90, I'm gonna say this again, 99.9% of the time, it is absolutely 100% not even remotely close to an emergency.
So we use Freedom Voice as well. So we have an app on our mobile phones that we can get the phone calls through. But for after hours, we have it set up that you have to dial a different number in order to actually get through to somebody. We don't offer 24-hour, or we don't guarantee 24-hour support, but our IVR says for emergency service or whatever, press this. So after hours, it doesn't come to our phone unless they press that. So I mean, you do have options there as well.
Yeah, that's very good. All right. So what are some of the other things we need to think about as far as getting away? I know we kind of touched on competition a little bit and maybe using a subcontractor out there, or, somebody in the area. And you were kind of hitting on the point, and we'll kind of go back a little bit. You were hitting on the point that some people are not comfortable with doing businesses with other businesses that do the same types of things that they do. Would
Yeah. So another option you could do is, I mean, if you have a friend, a relative, somebody that's decent or can at least follow instructions. Because, I mean, keep in mind, if you're sending somebody, even a subcontractor sometimes, most of the time you're going to have to walk them through whatever they're doing. So as long as they can be presentable, follow instructions, you should be okay. So that's another option as well.
That's a good point because a couple conferences ago, I do remember I had a computer that had come in that I needed to replace at a business, and I was not there. So the computer, I think I ordered it from Amazon. It was a nice little desktop computer for basically a construction yard, which got really dusty and everything. So I got one without moving parts, no fans inside, and all that kind of stuff. Because the one that I had taken apart, it was caked with all kinds of stuff. So, anyways, I wasn't there. I could have waited till Monday when I got back, but I decided to. I called my son and I said, "Hey, son, can you run over here?" And actually, I think this was during the week at this particular conference. I said, "Hey, can you run over there?" And I think he was probably 16 or 17 at the time. He went over there, hooked the computer up, got, straightened up all the cables and everything, got him up and running. And I told him, I said I'd log in on Monday if I needed to do anything, but I'd already for what they needed, they just needed access to the internet and things like that. They use another computer for QuickBooks and whatnot. So it was a pretty easy setup, and I, could have my son do it and pay him instead of having a subcontractor out there. But
Sure.
you shouldn't be afraid of other businesses because, again, it comes down to personality. People are going to work with certain people because of personality. That absolutely happens. That's just the way life is. And when you think about businesses out there, you want to make sure that there's going to be businesses out there that maybe handle bigger clientele. There might be businesses, MSPs, whatever you want to call them, that are basically, they go, "Hey, now we only want, 25 seats and up," which means 25 computers at a given location or locations. That's all they want to deal with. Anything under than that, it's not really worth their time and effort for their particular business model. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll go talk to a person like myself and say, "Hey, can you handle this 5 seat company?" Yeah, because they don't want anything to do with that. Well, a lot of times you're going out of town or you're going away, and I know John Dubinsky does this. He has a larger MSP that's staffed in Grand Rapids, and they'll basically cover any emergency calls he has. And they don't really want, now John's got some pretty big clients, but they don't really, they've got a good working relationship. They've known each other for years. And, neither one of them want each other's customers. Again, there's enough customers to go around. I don't understand this scarcity mentality that people have when we're talking about, gee, I've got 93,000 people in a 6 by 6 square mile radius. And I know this is not the same for everybody, but bear with me. Do the math and you will be astounded. And I have 50 different size computer repair shop, MSPs, whatever you want in that 6 by 6 square mile radius. Is there a competition problem? I don't think so.
Well, and the other side of that is, so let's talk about the 1 and 2 person shops, like a lot of us are. Partner with another 1 or 2 person shop because they're probably in the same situation where they're going to need that coverage for the same thing, or sick days, or whatever. So that can work out well as well.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, because you got to have that ability to go back and forth. And again, this goes a long way. And it's just like, for this particular conference, everybody coming together and sharing ideas. And I already know there are people that are within each other's area that are going to be at this conference. And do I think that somebody's going to go, I'm not going to share anything with them because, I don't want them to take over my business,
Yeah.
you know? And I've said this before, and Adam, you probably heard me say this, where if somebody can actually steal your customer, they really weren't your customer anyhow.
Or they're not a customer that you want.
Exactly. Probably both.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that we could cover on this subject as far as anything else we need to think about when we're planning to get away? Obviously, we pack and all that kind of stuff, bring extra underwear and make sure you bring your mouthwash and breath mints and toothpaste and all that kind of stuff. And
No, I think we've got pretty much everything.
all right, let's go ahead and take a quick break here. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here and you're enjoying this particular format and the conversation, we have a place where you can actually take that to the next level. And that is over at patreon.com/computer repair podcast. And over there, it's about $1 a show, and that's what we recommend. If you give that, then what we do is we let you into the secret Facebook group where you can basically communicate with other business owners in this field and get ideas, share ideas, and just be a wealth of information to help you in a nice, safe environment where nobody's going to go, "Hey, stupid, you shouldn't be in this business if you didn't know that." We don't do that. We don't allow that, and we really try to keep the opinions down to a certain level. Everybody's allowed to have their opinions, but you can't base your opinion on your experience on one product versus somebody else's experience on another product. There's a lot of people that still get on me about using carbonite.
Or
Don't
spreadsheet.
care. Or yeah, spreadsheets. Don't care because both of them work. So there's that. Now, not to say that other people have not had bad experiences, but here's the thing. It's no different than buying a car, shopping at certain stores. Different people are going to have different bad experiences with something. It doesn't make it a wholehearted bad product. It means, and you do the same thing that we all do. When I have a bad experience, I walk away and find something else. But I don't sit there and go, well, it was a bad product. No, it was a bad product for my particular situation. But anyways, going back to that, we don't really do that. So I want to thank our newest Patreon supporters for supporting the group, and they've gotten in here recently. That's Jordan Smith, Mark Luifer, and Mark Bergami. So appreciate that. Appreciate you guys giving to the network and what we're doing here. And so thank you for that. And I want to thank all of our regular Patreon supporters for your continued support. It helps us do the wonderful things like take a Sunday afternoon out and come and talk to you with wonderful people like Adam, who's in a whole different state. I was going to
Yep.
say country. Kind of is different country with cornfields but anyways.
Yeah.
All right, so I think with that, unless you've got any other things that you want to discuss, I think we pretty much
Nope.
wrap this up. So why don't you let people know where they can find you and where they can hook up with you and where they might see you in the near future.
All right. So I'm in the secret Facebook group. You can email me, support@itproiowa.com. You can call me, 319-227-7000, and I will be at Techcon Unplugged.
Awesome. Can't wait to see you there. I know it's been a while. So this will be a good reunion for a lot of people. All right, come join us live for the Computer Repair Podcast every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern over at podnutz.com/CRP Live. Join in on the conversation by hanging out in the chat room. And our chat room has changed. We started using the YouTube chat room so everybody knows you can go straight to the YouTube channel and you can log in right there and get into the chat. And we can do some cool things with the chat with the new platform that we're using. We can actually add those comments and things to the videos. And as people have known in the past, I've never allowed comments on my YouTube channel videos ever. Here's a nice thing about the live chat room, which I can sit there and go through while I'm doing this show, is that actually stays connected to that video. So you can always go back when you're watching a video and see the chat that was going on, which is kind of a cool thing. So there's that. You can send an email to podnutz@podnutz.com. I want to thank everyone for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on the Computer Repair Podcast.